Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really plunging into the, let's say, the raw and often pretty uncomfortable side of building a business.
Yeah, this isn't about just the highlight reels, is it?
Not at all. We're focusing on the grit, those really tough choices, and, the moments of struggle that honestly define real leadership.
And for this deep dive, we're drawing from an incredibly powerful source. It's excerpts from The Hard Thing About Hard Things. Building a business when there are no easy answers.
Ben Horowitz's book.
Exactly. And it's just packed with these super candid insights from him, as a CEO who really went through the ringer. Extreme highs, extreme lows, right in Silicon Valley. It's a very rare look behind that curtain.
It really is the kind of stuff that can genuinely shift how you think about things. So our mission for you listening is to pull out some actionable wisdom, maybe find those aha moments from these frankly intense experiences. Hopefully it helps you navigate your own challenges with maybe a clearer head and stronger resolve.
We're looking for that unvarnished truth today.
Absolutely. So let's unpack that raw honesty. Where should we start?
Well, I think we have to start with what Horowitz calls the struggle. It's a really core concept for him.
Okay.
He basically argues that every great entrepreneur, think Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, whoever, they all face just immense difficulty.
Yeah, it's not optional.
Not at all. It's supposedly where greatness comes from, but, and this is key, there's absolutely no guarantee you'll make it through. It's a pretty brutal reality check.
That is stark. And he certainly backs it up with some truly wild stories from his own experience.
Oh, definitely.
Let's maybe kick off with the one he calls the Netscape trial by fire. This is early days for him, right?
Yeah, very early. He was leading the enterprise web server product line there. That included the SSL protocol, which was brand new at the time, the basis for secure websites.
Foundational stuff. And then what happened?
Well, he vividly remembers getting this absolutely scathing email from Mark Andreessen.
From the boss.
Yeah, accusing product management, basically him, of losing something like $3 billion in market cap. And threatening his job.
$3 billion? What?
And the kicker, this email lands the very same day Mark Andreessen is on the cover of Time magazine. Barefoot. On a throne.
You can't make this stuff up. The irony.
It's incredible. And Horowitz is, 29? Wife, 3 kids. Total panic sets in.
I can only imagine. His job was everything.
He takes the magazine and the email home to his wife, Felicia, and her advice is just immediate.
What does she say?
You need to start looking for a job right away. Just like that.
Ouch. Did he get fired?
Thankfully, no. He didn't. And actually, that product line, Sweet Spot, ended up growing massively over the next couple of years.
So what's the takeaway there? Just pure resilience.
I think it's a huge lesson in early career resilience. Yeah. Facing what feels like the end of the world professionally when you're totally dependent on that job, but still finding a way to push through, keep performing, not letting that immediate fear just derail everything. His persistence paid off despite that public humiliation, basically, and the internal panic.
Okay, so if that Netscape firestorm wasn't enough, he then dives into something even more public, maybe even more relentless. The Loudcloud IPO roadshow.
Oh, that sounds like a nightmare scenario.
Absolutely. Imagine trying to take a tech company public when the stock market is crashing daily.
Bad timing.
Understatement. Tech stocks are getting hammered, blamed for everything. He said investors look like they'd come out of torture chambers.
Grim picture.
Yeah, and one mutual fund manager apparently looked right at him and Andreessen and just asked, "Why are you here? Do you have any idea what's going on in the world?"
Brutal.
He must have felt completely hopeless.
He genuinely thought they were going bankrupt. Said he barely slept more than 2 hours total during that whole 3-week trip.
And Andreessen, trying to lighten the mood, I guess, had this incredibly dark joke. He said, remember, Ben, things are always darkest before they go completely black.
That's bleak comfort.
Right. He actually calls his IPO night a highlight of depression. It just perfectly captures the sheer psychological toll of that kind of entrepreneurial struggle.
Yeah, it's not just about the money, is it? It's the mental, the emotional drain. It's immense.
After weathering those huge public storms, you'd maybe think, okay, the worst has to be over now.
You would hope so.
But then came the EDS must-win crisis at Opsware. That sounds like a totally different kind of threat. What was going on there?
It absolutely was different. Opsware was his next venture, the IT automation software company. A few quarters in, they get this terrible news.
Okay.
EDS, their biggest customer, by far, like 90% of their revenue threatens to cancel the contract.
90%. That's basically the whole company.
Exactly. They had technical issues, wanted their money back. Horowitz talks about that doomed again feeling just washing over him.
I bet. So what did he do?
He gathered his top people and laid it out, no mincing words. He said, this is a must-win. If EDS drops us, we're fucked, and it's over, because we're dead. So our only option is to win. We cannot lose this one.
Just pure survival mode.
Total survival mode.
Yeah.
And the environment they had to fix things in at EDS, it was, frankly, insane.
How so?
Well, EDS had inherited networks and systems from every customer they'd ever signed, from every era. Think ancient tech.
Spaghetti junction.
Totally. Data centers connected by these ancient, super slow 56K links. Operating systems or the old Opsware software literally wouldn't even run on them.
Nightmare.
And the people on the ground, often not very motivated. He mentions finding people sleeping in data centers, just a complete mess.
Wow. How do you even start fixing that? But there was some kind of clue, wasn't there? Something about an airport layover.
Yes. This is fascinating. One of his lieutenants, Anthony, sets up a meeting with a key EDS exec named Frank. When booking the flight, Frank asks for the longest possible layover.
Why on earth would anyone want that?
Exactly what Horowitz wondered. Anthony explains. Apparently, he likes to hang out in the airport bar between flights. And why does Frank like the airport bar?
Well, let me guess.
Because I hate my job.
No way. That was the clue.
That was the clue. It sounds trivial, right? But it's incredibly insightful. Even in this massive crisis, the solution can be hidden in these weird personal details.
So how did hating his job lead to saving the company?
It signaled they needed to find what Horowitz calls exciting value for Frank and EDS, something beyond just fixing bugs. The breakthrough came when they discovered EDS was already using a product from a company called Tangram.
Okay.
But EDS actually wanted to abandon Tangram's product. So Opsware went out and acquired Tangram.
Acquired the company. Just like that.
Just like that. It fixed the problem, saved the EDS account, and basically saved the entire company. It shows that power of looking beyond the obvious technical stuff, finding that human angle, that creative leverage.
And Tangram turned out to be a good acquisition long-term too, right?
Surprisingly, yes. Became a significant asset.
Incredible. So they saved the company from the EDS disaster. Surely things got easier then.
You'd think. But no. Another brutal blow. After they eventually sold the cloud part of the business to EDS, Opsware's stock just tanked.
Again.
Yeah, down to like 35 cents a share, which was literally half the cash they had in the bank. Shareholders just bailed completely.
Ouch. So zero faith from the market.
Pretty much. Horowitz realized basically nobody believed in Opsware's future except him. So he did something pretty unconventional.
What was that?
He rented 40 rooms in this low-end motel in Santa Cruz for the 80 remaining employees. Took them on this emergency one-night, one-day off-site.
Okay, drastic times.
And he gave this incredibly honest, almost brutal speech. He told them, essentially, Wall Street doesn't believe in us, but I do. Here's the plan. I understand if you don't believe.
Wow.
He issued everyone new stock grants. And then, this is the amazing part, he asked anyone who was planning to quit anyway to just do it right there.
Seriously, he asked them to quit on the spot.
Yeah. Promised to help him find a new job. He said, we need to know who is with us. We cannot afford to slowly bleed out.
That takes guts. What happened? How many quit?
2.
Just 2 out of 80?
Just 2.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes, doesn't it? That kind of transparency, that raw honesty, somehow it rallied them.
That's amazing leadership, actually. Facing the worst head-on with the team.
Exactly. And it ties into this broader point he makes later. Don't carry all the burdens yourself.
Right, share the load.
Share every burden you can. Get maximum brains on the problems, even the really scary existential ones. He recalls another time when Opsware was getting beaten badly by a competitor called Blade Logic.
In the IT automation space.
Right. He called an all-hands engineering meeting and just laid it out. We're getting our asses kicked. It's a product problem. If this continues, I'm going to have to sell the company for cheap.
Again, super direct.
Very direct. And then he asked them to go home, talk to their partners, and basically say, Ben needs me for the next 6 months.
Wow, asking for that level of commitment.
Yeah. Come in early, stay late, I'll buy dinner, I'll stay here with you.
Okay.
We have 1 bullet left in the gun, and we must hit the target. Just incredible pressure.
And how did the team react to that?
Well, what's really touching is his reaction later. Years later, he read something a team member wrote, recalling that period positively, how energized they felt. And Horowitz actually cried.
Really? Why?
He realized He hadn't known how much they were actually, like, thriving on that challenge. He thought he was asking too much, crushing them, but they were ready for another do-or-die mission. It's just a powerful reminder, you know?
Yeah.
Transparency, even about the really hard stuff, can be an incredibly potent motivator.
Okay, so beyond just surviving these crises, the book obviously digs into the fundamentals of actually building the company, right? People, product, process, the building blocks.
Absolutely. And he has this really clear philosophy that guides it all.
Which is?
Take care of the people, the products, and the profits in that order. People first.
People first. That sounds good, but what does it mean in practice?
Well, he contrasts it with badly run places where employees spend all their energy fighting the organization itself, infighting broken processes, unclear roles.
Yeah, we've all seen places like that.
Right. Where you can't even tell if you're doing a good job, and when you try to point out problems, management just gets defensive or ignores it. He says he comes to work because it's personally vital that the people spending, 12, 16 hours a day there have a good life.
That's a strong motivator for a CEO.
It really is. And the core takeaway is that a healthy organization starts with that deep commitment to employee well-being and clarity.
Yeah.
It directly impacts everything else.
And on that theme of people, he talks about training, right? That good product manager, bad product manager document.
Yes, that's a great example. He wrote this document inspired by Andy Grove at Intel, defining what good looks like for a product manager.
Yeah.
And he said it instantly improved his team's performance.
Instantly.
Yeah, he'd almost written off as, like, hopeless, suddenly became effective because they finally understood the standard.
So what were the key things for a good product manager, according to him?
Things like devise and execute winning plans, no excuses. Communicate crisply. Create the materials sales and marketing actually need. And, crucially, anticipate serious problems. Don't just react to them.
So the clear message is that structured training and explicit definitions of success can really unlock potential you didn't even know was there.
Exactly. It gives people a target to aim for.
But taking care of people sometimes involves tough decisions too, doesn't it? He talks about replacing executives.
Oh, yeah. That's a really difficult part of the book. He details having to replace basically his entire executive team, CFO, head of sales, head of marketing, after they shifted from Loudcloud to Opsware.
Why? Weren't they good people?
They were great people, great at their old jobs. But the company had changed fundamentally, and they just weren't the right fit, not qualified for the new roles at Opsware's stage.
That must have been incredibly painful.
Absolutely. But he makes this really important point. A CEO's ultimate loyalty isn't just to their direct reports, the execs. It has to be to the employees reporting to those execs.
Ah, interesting. So providing them with the best possible management.
Exactly. Providing them with a world-class management team. The insight there is pretty profound. Leadership loyalty isn't always about keeping individuals in place. It's about optimizing the whole system for everyone else.
That makes sense. Okay, let's shift to product strategy. He has this kind of counterintuitive idea about shipping the wrong product.
Yeah, it sounds paradoxical, right?
Yeah.
But he recalls how Opsware's early code was, let's say, rough. Hardwired to physical machines, the UI wasn't ready. He mentions one component called the Jive that literally had a purple pimp hat on the front page.
A purple chimp hat. Seriously.
His engineers were obviously nervous, pointing at competitors with slicker stuff.
Understandably.
But Horowitz realized the only way to build the right product was actually to ship and try to sell the wrong product.
Okay, unpack that. It wasn't about just failing.
No, not deliberative failure. It was about getting something, anything, into the market immediately. Why? To get real-world feedback, learn super fast, and iterate.
So avoiding building in a vacuum.
Exactly. Perfection and isolation is irrelevant if the market moves past you. He knew they'd probably fall on our faces, as he put it, but they'd learn quickly and do what they needed to survive. It prioritizes market learning over initial perfection.
That's a significant strategic bet. It takes guts.
Huge bet. And speaking of needing the right people to execute these risky strategies, the story of hiring Mark Cranny as head of sales is fantastic.
What was unusual about that?
Well, Cranny apparently came across as standoffish and even obnoxious in interviews.
Not usually a selling point for a sales leader.
Right, because he only talked about how his old company won deals, not his personal achievements. But then he blew Horowitz away by knowing intimate details about deals Opsware's own sales team was currently competing for. Deals Horowitz himself didn't even know that level of detail on.
Whoa, like he had spies everywhere.
Kind of. Horowitz called it his sales FBI. It showed Cranny was obsessed with the company winning, not just puffing up his own resume.
That's a key distinction.
Huge. Cranny later said, 2% of zero is zero, meaning individual commission doesn't matter if the company fails. So the lesson for listeners, look for candidates obsessed with your company's win, not just their own glory.
Great point. Now, shifting gears a bit to company structure, the book contrasts Mark Andreessen and Mark Zuckerberg on titles. That's interesting.
Yeah, two very different philosophies highlighting how you can define culture through hierarchy or lack thereof.
So Andreessen's view.
Basically, titles are the cheapest form of compensation. Give them out freely. Presidents, chiefs, senior executive vice presidents make people feel important, help you outbid competitors for talent. If it costs nothing, why not?
Okay, pragmatic. And Zuckerberg at Facebook.
Totally opposite approach. Keep titles low, deliberately. Why? To maintain organizational clarity, especially during rapid growth. Too many chiefs, nobody knows who does what. Makes sense. Plus, he wanted to ensure product people and engineers remained the cultural core, avoiding, like, title inflation for business folks. He admits they might lose some hires this way, but it keeps the culture strong and clear.
So it's a trade-off. Recruitment flexibility versus cultural clarity.
Exactly that. Fascinating contrast.
And Andreessen Horowitz itself, the VC firm, has that practice with the late fines, right?
Oh yeah, the $10 per minute fine for being late to meetings with entrepreneurs. Ruthlessly enforced.
Wow, $10 a minute adds up fast.
It sure does. But it's a brilliant, concrete example of culture in action. It's not just a mission statement on the wall.
What's the purpose behind it?
It does two things. One, it shocks new employees into understanding the firm's core value. Respect entrepreneurs above all else. They use the bacon and egg breakfast analogy. The entrepreneur is the pig, committed. The VC is the chicken involved.
Right, different levels of skin in the game.
Exactly. If you don't fundamentally believe entrepreneurs are more important than VCs, you basically can't work there. It sets a really clear boundary.
Okay, so it's clear being CEO, especially in these tough situations, means making incredibly difficult, often very lonely choices. What tools, what mindsets are absolutely essential?
Horowitz gets deep into this. He contrasts what he calls wartime CEOs and peacetime CEOs.
Wartime versus peacetime, how do they differ?
A peacetime CEO focuses on defining culture, building contingency plans, leveraging existing advantages. They tend to avoid profanity, seek competition more broadly.
Standard playbook, maybe?
Sort of.
Oh.
A wartime CEO, though, they let the war, the crisis, define the culture. They sometimes have to take massive risks, roll a hard six, as he says. They're paranoid, and they use profanities strategically.
Strategically? How?
He gives an example. Saying that is not the priority is way weaker than saying that is not the fucking priority. It cuts through the noise, emphasizes urgency. The core lesson is your leadership style has to adapt, sometimes radically, to the reality you're facing.
That certainly makes the urgency clear. But even with those strong actions, he talks a lot about the loneliness of the job.
Yeah, that really comes through. He emphasizes that CEOs are often just all alone when making those huge fundamental calls about whether the company lives or dies.
Why alone? Don't they have boards, advisors?
They do, but the knowledge gap can just be too big. Advisors might not understand the nuances, the specific context, well enough to give truly useful advice on those life or death decisions. He mentions Jason Rosenthal selling Ning. Ultimately, despite advice from brilliant people, the final call was his alone.
How do you even cope with that level of isolation?
It's a huge question, isn't it? He suggests a couple of things. One, make friends with other CEOs or founders who've been through similar hell. You might not get perfect advice, but the psychological support, just knowing someone else gets it, is invaluable.
Makes sense. Like a support group.
Kind of. And second, get your thoughts out of your head. Write them down. Journaling, planning, whatever. Just the act of articulating them can bring clarity and calm the nerves a bit. So for listeners, loneliness is real, but you can find solidarity and coping mechanisms.
Okay. Another challenge she discusses is that tension between accountability and creativity, the paradox.
Right. How do you hold people accountable for hitting their targets without making them terrified to take necessary risks? It's a constant tightrope walk.
Because if you're too soft...
The people who do deliver, who work crazy hours, start feeling like suckers. Like, why bother if there are no consequences for missing deadlines by 6 months?
But if you're too harsh...
People just stop taking risks. They focus on covering their butts, playing it safe, which can kill innovation.
So how do you find the balance?
He advises looking at the context. Consider the person's seniority, how difficult the task actually was, and critically, was the original risk they took the right risk, even if it didn't work out this time? It requires nuance, not just a simple rule.
Right. Judgment is key. No easy formula.
Exactly.
Another crucial skill is feedback. He kind of dismisses the old shit sandwich method, right?
Yeah, thankfully. He outlines better principles for feedback that actually works. Like, be authentic. You have to actually believe the feedback you're giving. Come from a place of genuinely wanting the person to succeed, not just criticizing. Avoid personal attacks. Never, ever embarrass someone in front of their peers.
Crucial.
Tailor your style. Some people need directness, others need a gentler approach. But always be direct enough. Watered-down feedback is often useless, maybe even worse than none.
And the result of doing feedback well, consistently.
People start focusing on fixing the issues, not feeling personally attacked. And importantly, they get comfortable discussing bad news, which means problems surface faster, becomes part of the culture. Effective feedback is a continuous practice, builds trust.
This seems to tie into his idea about the story and the strategy being the same thing for a good company.
Absolutely. The story isn't just marketing fluff, it's the fundamental why.
Why join? Why buy? Why invest?
Exactly. Why should anyone care? Why is the world better off because this company exists? It goes way beyond just hitting quarterly numbers.
And how does that function practically for a leader?
That narrative, that context is what aligns everyone. It helps people make decisions independently because they understand the bigger purpose. It motivates. It's a strategic tool for alignment, both inside and outside the company. Without a compelling why, the what and how just don't resonate as strongly.
So when you boil it all down, what are the CEO's absolute core tasks, according to Horowitz?
He says it's basically two things. First, knowing what to do. That covers strategy, the story we just talked about, and the speed and quality of decision-making.
Setting the direction.
Right. And second, getting the company to do what you want. That's all about execution, building a well-run organization, performance management, having the right incentives. He points to Netflix's freedom and responsibility culture as a great example of designing a system for effectiveness at scale.
So it's both vision and execution.
Precisely. A CEO's real impact lies in setting the right direction and relentlessly enabling the company to actually get there.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive into the hard thing about hard things, it really shows that building a company is absolutely not a straight line, is it?
Not even close. It's just filled with these moments of incredible pressure, these ethical gray areas, and this constant need to make really hard choices, often without all the information you wish you had.
We've seen how things like resilience, having that clear vision, and importantly, that deep commitment to your people, even when you have to make tough calls about them, can really be the difference.
Yeah, the difference between outright failure and actually building something meaningful, something impactful. Horowitz's own journey, from Netscape through Opsware to eventually co-founding Andreessen Horowitz. It's just a masterclass in learning from every single blow.
So ultimately, maybe the challenge this leaves us with for you listening is, when you face your next hard thing, your next crisis, are you going to kind of nibble around the edges? Or are you going to, as Horowitz puts it, eat shit decisively?
Knowing that real leadership often demands facing that uncomfortable, unvarnished truth head on.
Exactly. A powerful thought to end on.